So, back to homework review. What would you like to work on?
Can we have a review on homework one, just 2 questions?
Sure.
From the process, really, from...
Okay, so tell me which problem. Rather, tell me the problem, because I don't have it.
Yes, sir. We can start on question number 1, price floor, and I just need clarification on the price floor and price ceiling.
Very good.
That's it.
Tell me what the demand is, please. No, I'd rather you guys tell me. Thank you so much. It's too much responsibility to bear.
Demand P equals 10 minus 1 QD.
So it's 10 minus dq, right?
Yes.
10 minus 1.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very
And
good.
then
So, demand P equals 10 minus Q. Yes? Supply.
supply 2 plus Q.
P equals 2 plus Q.
Yes,
Correct?
sir.
Very good. So, let's start step by step. First, let's solve the equilibrium. What is the equilibrium quantity? What is the equilibrium price? You set the right-hand sides equal to each other. So, equilibrium first. 2 plus Q equals 10 minus Q. From there, 2Q equals 8. Equilibrium quantity equals 4. Correct? Any questions? Plug that quantity back in the demand curve or demand function or supply function. 2 plus 4 is 6. 10 minus 4 is 6. Right? So equilibrium price, $6. Now, let's find consumer, producer, and total surpluses in equilibrium. You measure consumer surplus by the size of the area of the top triangle, which is tall. How tall is it?
4.
4 times
4.
divided by 2. Producer surplus, area of the bottom triangle. How tall is it? 4 times divided by 2. Do they always have to be the same size? No. 8 plus 8 is total surplus of 16. Correct? Any questions? Yes.
Where's 2?
Okay.
Is it 4 times 2?
Did I say 4 times 2? 4 times 4 divided by 2.
4 times 4 divided by 2.
Now, what are we going to impose? Price floor or price ceiling?
Floor first.
So, well, in this particular problem, there's only one thing we're imposing.
Yeah,
right?
the floor.
Okay. So, what is the price floor? $7. Very good. We're imposing price floors of $7. Okay? At that price floor, is the market in equilibrium? Correct. How do you know?
Because it's on top. I don't know.
On top.
Because it's
Everybody's on top.
above the price equilibrium.
Say that.
It's above the price equilibrium.
Okay, so why does the price above equilibrium price not equilibrium as well?
Except $7, they're only demanding 3.
Because at that price $7, quantity demanded and quantity supplied are equal to each other. So if at that price quantity demanded and quantity supplied are not equal to each other, it cannot be an equilibrium. Exactly, right? Because definition of equilibrium is the price and quantity such that at that price quantity demanded and quantity supplied are equal to each other, equal to equilibrium quantity, right? At price 7, it is no longer true that quantity demanded and quantity supplied are equal to each other. Now they're not equal to each other, so let's find them. What is quantity demanded? What is quantity supplied? How do we find that?
Plug it in.
So we're asking consumers who demand goods and services, what is the quantity of goods and services consumers are willing and able to buy at price 7? 10 minus how much is 7?
3.
3. Correct. What is the quantity of the good or service firms are willing and able to produce at price 7? 2 plus how much is 7? 5. Very good. So you see, quantity demanded is 3, quantity supplied is 5. That's not an equilibrium. That makes sense? Cool. Now, let's find the effect of that disequilibrium price, of that price floor, on consumer, producer, and total surplus. Of course, we're going to label them with primes because they are after price floor was imposed, right? Very good. So first of all, how much consumer surplus do consumers generate? Well, consumer surplus is measured as the area of the top triangle, meaning above the price. If consumers are now paying $7, it must be triangle above 7, below the demand curve, correct? How tall is it?
3.
It's 3 units tall. How wide is it? 3. So this is consumer surplus, right? So it is 3 times 3 divided by 2. How much is that? $4.50, correct. Producer surplus. How do we measure producer surplus? We measure producer surplus as the area of the lower triangle, meaning triangle below the price, above the supply curve, correct? That triangle is now really, really large. Does the area of the entire triangle measure the producer surplus? Why not? It would. This area of this large triangle would really measure producer surplus if firms really produced 5 units and sold them at price $7, correct? Can firms do that?
No.
Why not?
Is there only demand for it?
They sure can produce 5 units if they choose to, but are they going to sell it at price $7? No, they won't. Why? Because consumers are only willing to buy 3 units. So instead of the entire area of the large triangle, only a part of it will represent producer surplus. Only a part of it corresponding to the 3 units that are actually sold at price 7. That make sense? So it's not the whole triangle, it's only the part of the triangle to the left of quantity 3. That make sense? Good. So we're looking at that area, right? Of course, it's no longer a triangle. It's a triangle that lost a vortex. So now it's a trapezoid. How do we find the area of the trapezoid? We have to cut it into 2 pieces, right? Into a rectangular part and a triangular part. To find the area of that rectangle and to find the area of that little triangle down here, we must know this number. We need it. Otherwise, we don't know how tall that rectangle is. We don't know how tall the triangle is, right? We're missing information. So we must find this number. How do we find that number? Well, we know it is a number on the price axis, correct? It's the number on the price axis corresponding to a point on the supply curve, right? On the supply curve. What characterizes this particular point on the supply curve? Quantity 3, right? So we're looking for the price on the supply curve. So we're looking for a price on the supply curve at quantity 3. So what is the price on the supply curve corresponding to quantity 3? 2 plus 3 is 5. Very good. Now we have the number we were looking for. And now, let's find producer surplus. Of course, producer surplus now consists of two areas, of the area of the rectangle plus the area of the triangle. How big is the rectangle? How tall is it? 2 times 3 is $6 is the area of the rectangle. How tall is the triangle? 3 times 3 divided by 2 is 450, which together is $10.50. That makes sense? Very good. What is then total surplus?
$15.
$15. Very good. Now compare total surplus in equilibrium against the total surplus in, or compare total surplus with price floor against the total surplus in equilibrium. What happens to total surplus as a result of that policy? Drops. We call that deadweight loss. How large is the deadweight loss of the price floor in this example? $1. Very good. Why did the government, by the way, why did the government impose price floor to begin with? What's the purpose of a policy like that? Say it loud.
The prices don't get outrageous.
Really? So price was $6 and the government made it go up to 7, so it doesn't get outrageous? Okay. So, no, I mean, you don't have to improvise, guys. We have numbers on the board that tell you why the government did it. The government did it to make somebody better off, no? Well, we have consumers, we have producers. Check. Who got better off? Consumers, who enjoyed $8 consumer surplus in equilibrium, and now with price floor, enjoy only $4.50. Are consumers the beneficiaries of that policy? Do you think do you think the government made consumers happy with that policy? No. I mean, government made the price go up from 6 to 7, so of course government offended the consumers, right? So why do you think the government actually implemented the policy? Exactly, for the sake of producers. Producers had producer surplus $80, now their producer surplus is $10.50. See, producers are better off. That's why the government introduced the policy, to make producers better off. Should we have policies like that in every market? Why not, guys? This is a free business country. We appreciate job creators. I think, firms should have the freedom to operate and should prosper. Because if we have prospering firms, we have prospering economy. Is this the good way to prosperity? It sure makes firms better off, guys. Of course, it makes someone else worse off, but every policy does so. Is that a good enough reason not to adopt policies, just because they make someone better off and someone else worse off?
On the paper it says surplus is 2.
Say loud.
Surplus is 2.
Okay.
Is it what that is?
Well, the surplus, meaning the firms are willing and able to produce 5, while consumers are willing and able to buy only 3, right? So firms would overproduce, right? There would be excess supply or surplus of 2 units. That make sense?
Yeah, I was making sure that was what.
Very good. But, yeah, very different meaning of surplus, right? Not consumer surplus, producer surplus, but surplus of production of goods and of the good. All right, now, so you see, policy makes consumers worse off, but it makes producers better off. So what's wrong with the policy? Well, what's wrong with the policy, guys, is not that it makes somebody better off. It better, that's why it was implemented. It's not that it makes somebody else worse off. All policies do that. The problem is that it makes producers better off by a smaller amount than it makes consumers worse off, right? In other words, it makes producers $2.50 happier by making consumers $3.50 less well off. Does that make sense? In other words, producers benefit to the tune of $2.50 while consumers are losing $3.50 of consumer surplus. What happens to that dollar taken away from consumers that didn't make it to producers?
Goes away.
It disappears. It vanishes. It's lost, right? That's what we mean by deadweight loss. In other words, the policy reduces efficiency, right? That's what's wrong with the policy. That's why we have to be mindful of efficiency impact of policies. Again, just to make sure we all get the right message from this. Is the message of deadweight loss, of this analysis, is the message that we should not implement policies? Yes or no? So what is this analysis good for? It always shows us deadweight loss. What is it useful for? The point is that we need policies to accomplish certain goals. Usually, we have alternative policies to accomplish a certain goal. And we have various policies to accomplish a certain goal. We should compare those policies and pick which one. That causes the least amount of inefficiency, right? That's the bottom line. By the way, why can't we simply abolish policy making altogether? Why? I just said we have to have policies. Why do we have to have policies? Okay guys, do you want to live in Jacksonville with absolutely no cops anywhere?
No.
Well, if you want to have cops, we have to have government that actually runs the police department, right? But who's going to pay for it? Well, taxpayers have to pay for it. That means the government must raise taxes, right? It has to collect taxes. But what is a tax? It's a policy. So if you guys think you should have safe streets, you will need a government. And if you have a government, you have to pay for it in the form of taxes, which are policies. So we have to implement policies. If you don't want to live in chaos, if you don't want to live in Somalia, you have to have taxes and other policies. And once you have those policies, you better optimize them. You better have policies that get the job done at the minimum distortion to market efficiency. That makes sense? Good. Is the message getting bored? Getting boring by now? It better, we've been through it so many times. But these are important takeaways, important messages. Guys, ultimately this class is not about triangles. You will forget these things so fast it's not even funny. But it's really these takeaways, these messages about policy making and alternative policies that you will have to pay attention to, because that's something that's going to haunt you for the rest of your life. Because wherever you're going to be living, you're going to be paying your property taxes, sales taxes, those taxes, these taxes, and you will have government imposing all kinds of policies. And you will be responsible, you as voters will be responsible for making sure that you end up living in an America that is as efficient as it can be. Okay? Very good. What else are we gonna take a look
Thank
at? Do
you.
you have any questions about this?
Thank you.
Can we do a price ceiling?
Of course. So, all right. So, which problem are we gonna do? Give me demand and supply, please. Price ceiling.
The P equals,
Oops, I know what I forgot. What I forgot while we had it on board, I forgot to use the numbers to calculate elasticity. Let's not forget to do it now with this problem, okay? So we crunch those numbers right away. Yes, so I'm listening. Demand is
P equals 6 minus 0.5.
6 minus 0.5 Q.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, actually, let me keep a little bit here. Quantity, price, demand. P equals 6 minus half Q. Yes.
And supply is P equals 2 plus 0.5 Q.
Very good. Supply, P equals 2 plus half Q. Very good, thank you. So again, let's start with equilibrium. Equilibrium quantity, equilibrium price. How do we find the equilibrium? We set the right-hand sides equal to each other. 2 plus half Q equals 6 minus half Q. From there, Q equals 4. Equilibrium quantity is 4, correct? Plug quantity 4 into either demand or supply, you get 6 minus 2 is 4, 2 plus 2 is 4. Equilibrium, $4, correct? What is the consumer, producer, and total surplus? Again, we take a look at the areas of the triangles. The consumer surplus is measured as the area of the bottom triangle. Consumer surplus as the area of the top triangle. How tall is the top triangle? 2 times
4.
4 divided by 2 is $4. Producer surplus, area of the bottom triangle, how tall is it?
2.
2 times 4 divided by 2 is 4. Total surplus is $8, correct? Very good.
So just quick question, so
Yes.
are you, because you keep just doing like the 2 times 4 divided by 2.
Yes?
Is, like, how do you know which one's the consumer surplus and which one's the producer surplus? Or just,
I know it by the fact that if this is the price and this is demand curve, consumer surplus is measured as the area of a triangle below demand, above the price.
okay.
If this is supply and this is the price, producer surplus is measured as the area of the triangle below the price, above supply.
Okay, so it's just the top triangle and the bottom triangle, basically.
That's it.
Okay.
So, no, you're very welcome. Perfect place to ask that question. Yes.
I just solved like separately for demand and supply, like with algebra, like, P, just solved for QD and then, the quantity demanded, and then on the other one, solved for quantity supplied, and then I just subtracted the quantity demand, which was 6, minus a quantity supply, which was 4, which, 6 minus, I'm sorry, quantity supply, which was 2, so it was like 6 minus 2, which is 4, which is the deficit.
No, very good. We're not there yet.
Oh, okay,
That's what we're gonna do. I just found equilibrium now, okay?
okay,
So we're just doing equilibrium. We haven't imposed any policy yet. This is a market in equilibrium, okay?
okay.
Very good. Any questions about equilibrium? Everybody comfortable? Very good. So let's now impose the policy. What are we imposing, ceiling or floor?
Ceiling of $3.
Ceiling of $3. Very good. So here's the ceiling, right? Of $3. Very good. Is the ceiling of $3 equilibrium price? Correct. How do you know?
Because the price at supply and the price at demand is not
Exactly, because quantity
quantity.
supplied and quantity demanded are not equal to each other, right? So what is the quantity supplied at the price ceiling 3? When the price is $3, how much are firms willing and able to supply? What is the quantity? 2, because half of 2 is 1, 1 plus 2 is 3, right? So quantity supplied is 2 units. How much are consumers willing and able to buy at the price ceiling of 3? 3 minus 3 is 3. Sorry, 6 minus 3 is 3. So if half Q is 3, then whole Q must be 6. Very good. So, the market is no longer in equilibrium. In fact, the market experiences a deficit of 4 units, right? Deficit of 4 units. Of 4. Very good. So, quantity demanded, 6, quantity supplied, 2, deficit of 4. Very good. Now, the surpluses. Let's start with consumer surplus. Consumer surplus, as we mentioned a while ago, is measured by the area of the top triangle, as you call it, right? Top triangle, meaning above the price, below demand. Well, now the price is $3, right? Now the price is $3. So the top triangle above the price $3 is now this huge triangle. Is the area of that huge triangle the measure of consumer surplus in this market with price ceiling? Why not? It sure would be if consumers really could buy 6 units at the new low price of $3, right? Consumers would generate enormous consumer surplus, correct? Is that what consumers actually do in this market? Unfortunately, they can't. They would like to do it. We know that they would like to buy. They are ready to buy quantity 6, but they can't do it. Why not?
Because there's only 2 units.
Because firms don't bother producing 6 units. Firms only produce 2 units. So in fact, consumers only generate consumer surplus associated with buying 2 units, not 6 units. So of the entire large triangle, only part right? Only this part represents consumer surplus. In other words, there is no consumer surplus generated from buying the 3rd unit, 4th unit, 5th unit, 6th unit because they're not produced. Very good. So consumer surplus in this case is, again, measured by the area of this trapezoid. And again, to find the area of the trapezoid, we must cut that trapezoid into top triangular part and the bottom rectangular part. And to find the areas of these two parts, we again need to know that number. We don't know it. Again, it's a price number. It's a number on the price axis corresponding to a point along the demand curve. So we have to take a look at the demand curve and ask, what would be the price along the demand curve at quantity 2? Well, if quantity were 2, 6 minus half of 2 is 6 minus 1, which is 5. Very good. So now we know that the missing number is 5. If missing number is 5, we can find first the area of that top little triangle, let's say. How tall is it from 5 to 6? 1 times 2 divided by 2 is 1. Plus the area of the rectangle. How tall is the rectangle? How tall is the rectangle? 2 times 2 is 4. What is the size of the consumer surplus? $5, right? Very good. How about the producer surplus? The area of the lower triangle. How tall is that lower triangle? 1 times 2 divided by 2 is $1. What is the total surplus?
6.
5 and 1 is $6. What happens to total surplus once we impose the price ceiling?
It drops.
Drops from 8 to 6. That weight loss is $2. Brilliant. Why would a government impose a policy like that?
Help consumer.
To help consumers. Does it help consumers? Yes, it increases consumer surplus from $4 to $5, right? Because consumers are now enjoying a new lower price. Is it an efficient policy? No. It does make consumers $1 better off, but it does so by doing harm to producers of $3. Producer surplus drops from 4 to 1 by $3. So consumers are $1 better off, producers are $3 worse off, right? And that, of course, is inefficient. By the way, guys, why am I saying it's inefficient? What's inefficient about it? What there's no other way to make consumers $1 better off? Any other way other than making producers $3 worse off?
You mean with like a subsidy?
Let me suggest that there is a way. For example, I decide, guys, that I want to make this half of the class, the right-hand side of the class, $1 better off by taking money away from the left-hand side of the class. And I find a policy to do that. I will call that policy price ceiling. And in the process, you all guys will benefit to the tune of $1, while I'm making all of you guys $3 worse off. Right? That's exactly what that price ceiling does in this particular example. Is there a better way? Is there a more efficient way to accomplish the same goal? Sure as heck. If I want to make each and every one of you $1 happier, I could just come to each and every one of these students and do what? Take $1 from you, give it to you. Take $1 from you, give it to you. each of you will be $1 happier, and each of you will be $1 less happy. Would you rather be $1 less happy or $3 less happy? There you go. So this policy makes these people $1 happier by hurting you to the tune of $3. That is inefficient, right? I might as well take $1 from each of you, just give it to these people, and you would be just as happy as the other way, only you guys would be less adversely affected. That make sense? So that's what we mean by inefficiency. That's what the deadweight loss captures. Very good. Any questions?
We gotta do elasticity.
Say it again?
Elasticity.
Elasticity. Thank you so much. You want to finish this? Do you want to finish this course? Go ahead. Okay, guys. So you remember, how do we calculate elasticity? Which side should I make it? Is this better? Is this still within the
You can choose whatever you
purview?
want.
Okay. So you remember that elasticity formula is basically a compound fraction, right? Where at the top we have quantities, at the bottom we have prices, right? So in the numerator of the elasticity formula, we have the difference between the two quantities and the sum of the two quantities. In the denominator, we have difference between the two prices and sum of the two prices, right? 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Does it matter which of those prices and which of those quantities are labeled as 1 and which one is labeled as 2? It doesn't matter. All we have to do is make sure that the result is a positive number. Exactly. So we just put it in absolute value. So let's start with elasticity of demand. How do we find elasticity of demand in this example? Well, since we're talking about elasticity of demand, we have to find elasticity somewhere along the demand curve. So we're looking for two well-defined points along the demand curve. And we have this one and this one, right? This is the equilibrium along the demand curve. This one is quantity demanded and price when price ceiling is imposed. We first need two quantities. Can you see the quantities corresponding to these 2 points? Yes, they are 4 and 6, right? What's the difference between 6 and 4? 2. What's the sum of 6 and 4? 10. Divided by. And now the two prices. What are the prices associated with those 2 points? 4 and 3. What's the difference between 4 and 3? 1. What's the sum of 4 and 3? 7. How much is 2/10 divided by 1/7? 7/5, right? Correct?
Yeah.
It better be. 7/5. How much is 7/5?
1.4.
1.4. Very good. So, elasticity of demand is 1.4. What does it tell you about the demand along this segment of the demand curve? Is demand elastic, inelastic, unitary elastic, perfectly elastic, perfectly elastic? It is elastic, correct. Larger than 1, smaller than infinity. It's elastic. What does it mean? What does that elasticity 1.4 tell you? Form a sentence that explains what elasticity 1.4 means.
When the price goes up 1%.
Say it very loud.
When the price goes up 1%.
When the price goes up by 1%, quantity demanded will fall by 1.4%. That makes sense? That's the interpretation of that number. Very good. Elasticity of supply. Let me actually write it here. Elasticity of supply. What do we need to find elasticity of supply? We need 2 points along the supply curve, right? Here we have 2 points along the supply curve. What are the quantities associated with those 2 points along the supply curve? 2 and 4. What is the difference between 2 and 4? What's the sum of 2 and 4? What are the prices associated with those 2 points? 3 and 4. What's the difference between 4 and 3? What's the sum of 4 and 3? How much is 2/6 divided by 1/7? 7/3, right? How much is 7/3?
2.33.
2.33. Very good. Right? So, elasticity of supply is 2.33. What can you tell me about supply along that particular segment of the supply curve? Is it elastic, inelastic? 2.33. 2.33. What is it? Elastic, inelastic? It is elastic, definitely. It's greater than 1, smaller than infinity. That's elastic. Just how elastic? What does that 2.33 tell you? If price of the good rises by 1%, firms are willing and able to produce 2.33% greater output, right? Quantity supplied increases by 2.33%. Can you repeat that? I will say the whole thing again. If price increases by 1%, firms are willing and able to increase quantity supplied by 2.33%. Firms will increase quantity supplied by 2.33%. That's the interpretation of that elasticity number. Yes?
We're about to go vertically, but the battery's about to die.
Is about to that. Mhm.
Yeah, it's flashing.
So when you said the 1.4, when demand price goes up by 1% or something,
That's exactly what it means.
falls 1.4.
Correct, because demand is downward sloping.
Oh,
Okay? So when price goes up, quantity supply goes up. But when price goes up, quantity demanded goes down, right? All right, guys. Any questions about this?
I have one.
Yes.
Is the quantity, is that the elastic quantity and the, or no, not quantity, the quantity equilibrium and the price
Yes.
equilibrium? Is that always going to be the same as the consumer surplus and the producer surplus?
No. This is sheer coincidence.
Okay.
Very good question. Sheer coincidence. Any other questions? If not, I suggest let's take 15-minute break and continue. What do you say?
yes.
Let's shut it down.